addict and I'm in recovery. We started the meeting, I have 109 days clean today, clean and sober. Pejman, thank you, and Don, thank you very much for sharing. We're both moving stories, and my story is a lot like Pejman's, except I don't have the 9 years of sobriety and clean time after it. So I'll just, I'll tell you what my life is like now first, to switch it up a little bit. And also, I don't mind if you guys laugh at my stories. I mean, some of my stories are death-defying and awful and terrible. And the way I get through it now in recovery is I laugh at my life. I laugh at the atrocities that I cause and I live through. Because it's in the past. I'm not living in the past anymore. I'm living in the here and now. Today, I have a 7-year-old daughter. I have a life with her. I see her all the time. I'm not with her mother, but I'm friends with her mother. I own a business with my father. My father is one of my closest friends and definitely my closest family member. My father had a lot to do with saving me and saving my life. I will definitely get emotional and cry like a baby during this talk, so I don't care. I'm not embarrassed about that at all because I'm just happy to feel something today. I'm happy to feel joy and gratitude, which is something that was foreign to me for many, many years. I live in a sober living house. It's called an Oxford House in Falls Church, Virginia, where we all have to stay sober and clean and live in that house. We have meetings regularly. We all support each other, hold each other accountable. I go to meetings in different fellowships, different fellowships for drugs and alcohol. And I lead meetings, I take meetings, I do all this stuff. I go to rehabs. I try to take newcomers, even though I'm only 109 days in. 109 days is the longest clean time I've ever had in my life in recovery. I've had moments of sobriety, as long as 6 months in my life, but never where I was actually looking at my life and thinking, what is wrong with me? Why can't I stop the obsession with hurting myself? And I didn't even know that was what was happening until recently. So today my life is pretty good. I'm filled with joy and I'm mostly filled with gratitude. I put God first and my recovery is part of that. And then everything else comes after that, including my daughter. A lot of people think, you should put your children first, your family first. But really, without my recovery, I was not a father. And I'll tell you, before I got into recovery, before I got into treatment, I hadn't seen my daughter for 6 months. I was too ashamed and too high to see my kid. So just to tell you a little bit about my background. I grew up as a child of alcoholics and addicts. I was 8 years old the first time I had a drink. Me and my sister stole a bottle of vodka from my dad. Had a great time. I mean, it was like the best relief I ever had in my life. I mean, 8 years old. I mean, 8 is like, I don't know, like second, third grade. But I had so much trauma in my life at that point. I was not thinking anymore. And I certainly had 2 stepsisters and 2 stepbrothers, all older than me, cousins. Everybody drank and smoked marijuana when I was growing up. So it was normal to me with my family. With my friends, I had friends that were like, normal kids. I mean, they were just like, whatever, they smoked, until 7th grade. But I remember the relief I got when I got high. When I would just, me and my sister would obsess about getting marijuana, and this went on for years, getting drunk, just to have some relief. And I wasn't thinking about it as relief, I just thought it was fun back then. But basically, if I was drunk or high, I didn't have to deal with thinking about the night before when I came home and my mother and my cousin were fighting in the house. They were both wasted drunk, breaking glasses, pulling knives on each other. I mean, really violent crap in my life. And so when I was drunk or high, I didn't have to think about that. And nobody knew what was going on with me because they were too self-involved. They were too involved with their own lives. And I didn't talk about it. It's part of the process of recovery is learning about this stuff and how it affects us in long term. How it affects us in the long term. By the time I was 12 years old, I was smoking marijuana daily. I was smoking it going to school, during school, after school, skipping school, whatever. I mean, school was like not a priority in 7th and 8th grade. It was just whatever. It was just, I missed 31 days of school in 8th grade. I don't know how I passed. I guess I'm just that smart. I could just escape my way through school. But then I moved into my dad's house in 9th grade, and it was a reprieve from the insanity, at least for during the week. I'd go to my mom's house on the weekends, and it was like the same show, just the same drunken show. And my dad had his issues too. I mean, I grew up with, my dad was a heavy drinker. I don't think he's an alcoholic because he managed to stop one day, but he was a coke addict. And he did coke for 20 years, and I saw him doing this, not in front of me, but I'd wake up and hear him talking about it. I'd find ounces of coke in the house, you know. I mean, it was crazy. It's insane what I went through as a child. To think that I'm still alive is sort of miraculous. But when I was in high school, I was relatively sober, you know. Like, I mean, I'm talking like 13, 14 years old. I wouldn't drink during the week. And this sounds like, this guy crazy. He's talking about not drinking when he was 13. But this is real. This is what happened. Weekends I would get heavily loaded with my old friends. Eventually my friends in high school, I went to this new high school away from my mom's house in my mom's neighborhood, and I found friends and we started drinking. We would drink, get a case of beer, drive around Friday night, getting drunk in the car. Guess what you did, you know? This is back in the 80s. I'm 42 years old, by the way. I never got caught. I would steal my dad's Corvette, go to the beach with my friends. Now we graduated to a cooler full of beer. You know, just racing everybody, driving drunk all the time. I never got caught, never got in bad accidents. I was really lucky. And then in college, I started smoking pot a lot. And I started selling, this is when I started selling drugs for the first time, really, in my life. I was selling marijuana in college. And I did that because I was a broke college student. I went to Virginia Tech, by the way. Go Hokies. Body goes to Virginia Tech. And you know, it was how I kept my addiction going. You smoke every day, you know, it's a lot of money. So I would drive to DC, pick up a quarter pound of marijuana, drive back, sell 3/4 of it, and keep one for myself and my girlfriend. And that would last a week. A quarter ounce a week. That's about what we were going through. Sometimes more, depending on if we got something special. After college, I graduated from Virginia Tech, but I mean, I'm telling you, I'm a freaking genius because I didn't study at all, and I just managed to figure out how to work the professors and everything, you know? Because I mean, I just didn't study. I went to business school, which is relatively easy. It's easier than engineering there. And after college, I said, you know what? I am done smoking pot. I'm sick of being high. I don't like it. I don't really like being drunk. So I stopped smoking pot when I was 22 years old. I moved out west. You know, I got real spiritual. I found God again in my life, and I rarely drank. And this went on for about 10 years. Okay, I would drink occasionally. I never smoked pot. I was really mean to people that would smoke pot. I wouldn't let anybody in my house to smoke pot. I was like, no, you're not allowed in my house. I can't be around that crap. You know, I knew inside that I was an addict, but I wasn't in recovery. I just got really full of God and like really arrogant and spiritually arrogant. You know, it was a real, I'm trying not to curse, but sorry, it's hard for addicts like me not to curse when you're around other addicts cursing all the time. I say this, but I was a really like judgmental person, critical, and not very godly, I would say, but I thought it was all about God. So this kept me mostly sober for 10 years, until I went through a bad breakup in a relationship that was going south for a long time. And I said, you know what, I went to my buddy, you know what, let's just go get wasted. Let's go. We went to Penn State for a football game. I never made it to the football game. I woke up in a field somewhere in the middle of the night, drunk, and, you know, just drinking. Then I started drinking daily, drinking, at 32 years old. And eventually I met the mother of my child, and she was a sober person. She had never been drunk or high in her life, never had a cigarette in her life. She was an Olympic synchronized swimmer from Moscow, from Russia. And so I thought, this is how I'm going to stay sober. I'm going to marry a sober woman. That'll keep me sober. And you know what? We drank tea, we ate biscuits, we ate cookies, we watched Sex and the City together. You know, I was like, I'll do anything. This is great. I'm not at a bar. You know, meanwhile, I'm like, this poor woman, you know, I'm like, she's in love with me now, and I'm like, I'm just staying sober. And that lasted for like 3 months. And then I got busy at work, you know, and I went to happy hour, and I started going happy hour, and happy hour turned into late happy hours, and then we had a kid, and then that was a nightmare, because then her Russian mother moved in with us for like 2 months. She's supposed to be there for 2 months, and she's still here 7 years later. She hasn't left. So, damn, I'm like, what the hell is going on here? So I took it, I stayed there for 4 years. About 2 years after my daughter was born, someone introduced me to cocaine. And, you know, I was miserable. If you saw me, I was like, I'll be at, nowhere where I was at a bar or whatever. I was like, oh my God, my life sucks. I'd rather work or drink myself to death than go home, because I had to deal with this extremely judgmental, critical mother in-law that didn't speak English, so she just yelled at me in Russian all the time. Tell me what I was doing wrong as a father. I'm not good enough, don't make enough money, you don't know how to change a diaper, you're not eating right, you're not sleeping right, you wake up too early, you go to bed too late, whatever. That's my life was. So when the guy says, hey, we're going to go get some cocaine, man, I know it's not your thing, you're a family guy, you want to try? I'm like, I'm in. How much money do you need? I threw the money down. One of those guys goes, I was out till like 3 a.m. It's the first time I really did a lot of coke. And my wife is blowing my phone up. She's like, where are you? Are you okay? Are you alive? Are you dead? I'm like, I can't answer the phone, I'm too high. I'm like, if anyone knows coke, you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? The first time I've ever done it, I'm freaking out. She texts me, the police are here. I'm like, why are you calling the police? I'm fine, Oh my God. So then I'm like, I go home, I park 2 miles away. I'm just illustrating the insanity of doing drugs, and this is right where it began for me with heavy drugs. I parked 2 miles away from my house because I didn't want the cops to follow me. I thought they might be waiting for me outside the building, and it was insane. Anyway, the cops were there, everything worked out that day. But I started doing cocaine, it took about 6 months, but I started doing cocaine every day. And I'm an obsessive person, I'm an addict, and I obsess about anything. I'm obsessed about recovery now. All I do is work, go to recovery, hang up my daughter, and pray. That's it. God, recovery, daughter, work. God, recovery, water. And that's why I'm here, this is what I do. This keeps me clean and sober. Coming to talk to people about addiction, whatever, prevention, recovery. So anyway, I started doing it every day. I owned a company. We're about $2 million gross company a year. In my 20s, by the way, I didn't mention this. I say this because addiction does not discriminate. It will get anybody, gender, race, creed, education, economic status, socioeconomic status, doesn't matter. It doesn't care. It's a common denominator among addicts. I got my master's degree in my 20s, and I was a consultant for many years before I started my construction business. So I was well educated. I know better, right? Meanwhile, I was going to grad school getting drunk every time before class. I mean, this is just, but I didn't think I was an alcoholic because I could stop at that point. It's a progressive disease, like has been said already. So as you get into it, and you never know what's going to happen. It just, life events, and I'm going to get to where it got real bad here in a minute, but, so laugh it up now, because this next part is not fun. It's not funny. Anyway, so life events, and it was, Don touched on the brain and neurology. And one thing I learned in treatment about neurology is how, I'm just reiterating what he said, that once you do a drug enough to become addicted to it, your brain turns off, the frontal lobe turns off, your limbic system is this survival mode. I smoke cocaine, it makes me feel good. I'm gonna die if I don't have more. You smoke more, I feel better now. Okay, I gotta do more. The brain shuts off the part like, you're gonna die if you don't stop. You feel like you're gonna die if you don't do more. But it's the opposite of reality. The reality is you're gonna die if you don't stop. But it doesn't work that way. Once you get that limbic system working, you're firing on your cortisol in your brain, you're done. You're done until you hit a brick wall. So I'll get to that. But once I left my family, I just couldn't manage both life with them and without them. I was just stuck in between two hard places. And I was so miserable, I said, you know what, I'm having fun going out and partying with my friends. I started dating other women. I was like, this is awesome. I've never had fun like this in my life. And I just ignored the whole part of my being that was like, what about God? What about your daughter? What about life? I'm like, no, forget it. I'm having my time. This is my selfish time in life. I'm going to have fun. So, what happens is, I'm going to just skip. I did with a whole lot of partying, wasting money. I ran my company to the ground because I spent all my money on drugs. Before I started selling drugs, I was spending $700 a day on cocaine and using most of it myself. And then, eventually you run out of money if you're not working. And everybody that works for you gets sick of you not coming into work. And your customers don't like you anymore because you're not completing a construction job. You take a deposit, go cash the check, go get drugs, and never do the work. They don't like that. It's illegal, by the way, too. It has consequences. So I eventually said, what I'm going to do? I'm going to become a drug dealer. That's the answer. Because now I'll never run out of drugs, and I'm the guy. I'm the life of the party. Like, everybody loved Joey because Joey came with the drugs. He had the best drugs, most drugs, never ran out. Call him at 5 in the morning, he'd show up with drugs. And this fed my ego. It fed my need for approval. It fed my need for acceptance. Because as a child, I was neglected, And it's not, I'm not blaming my parents anymore. I mean, I went through life blaming somebody else for my issues, but it was definitely had something to do with the way I am today, where I have this approval addiction, you know, I have this love addiction. And then as soon as somebody loves me, I don't want them anymore for some reason. It's just a weird, I'm sick, you know, my brain is sick, I'm not normal. And so I started selling drugs, and then I started selling a lot of drugs. And I got hooked up with these people that were really bad guys. Like, and I mean, there's a saying in the program that says, you know, we're not bad people, we're just sick people doing bad things. And we're just trying to get well here. Okay, whether you're trying to get well by getting high or trying to get well in recovery, we're just trying to get well, and sometimes we don't know what we're doing. But you know, I say these bad guys, they were really sick people doing bad things. And I was a really sick man doing bad things. Like, you know, just lots and lots of drugs. And I want to talk about heroin because that's really why we're here. And I started doing, I had a back injury when I was 36, and I started doing opiates. I started doing Percocets. I was on them for about 9 months, and then my back, I went to a therapist and got my back fixed, and I stopped taking them. I stopped taking them for 6 months. I said, I'm not addicted. I never went through withdrawal, right? And it was like 6 months later, I'm going back to the story where I left my family. My friend had a great idea. He goes, you know what, I bet you could go back to your doctor and get Oxy now, because you can just say you re-injured your back. And I was like, that's a great idea. We can get free drugs, right? Because like pharmaceuticals are free if you get on insurance, or even if you're not, it's cheap compared to buying them on the street. So I did. I ended up getting a prescription for oxycodone. 30 milligram tabs, I got 150 a month, and I had that for years. I mean, it's a lot of drugs. For all of you who don't know, like most people will get an injury. If you do get a Percocet's 10 milligrams of oxycodone mixed with Tylenol. The Tylenol's in it to help with the pain and also to prevent you from being addicted to the stuff, because you can't take too much Tylenol and make you sick. But I got the stuff that was pure oxycodone, which is pharmaceutical grade heroin. And it's not as strong as heroin, but it's clean. You know what's in it, and you know, like, you're not going to most likely you're not going to die from the cut in it. You know it's not fentanyl. It's not some other weird morphine or something in it you don't know. And I said exactly what one of them said. You know, I'll never do heroin. I said it. I'll never do heroin. I'm just sticking with the pills. I get high enough of these. I don't need anything stronger. Heroin's disgusting. I knew heroin addicts, and they're all like, you know, they're like this, drooling, right? It's just disgusting. And meanwhile, I was like this, just not with the needle in my arm. I was just snorting the pills or smoking the pills. It is weird people smoke pills, but it happens. I did, you know, hundreds of them. So eventually, I was working with this guy, meaning selling drugs, and he had gotten a kilo of heroin. And a kilo of heroin is a lot of heroin. Okay, it's worth about $180,000 to $100,000. And that man is now serving time in federal prison. He's awaiting trial. He's for manufacturing heroin. And by the grace of God, I got away from him before he got caught and before I got caught up with it. But that's where I learned about heroin. And we had this stuff. I'm telling you this for a reason, actually, because it's really popular now. There's a stuff called China White. And China White is a fentanyl-based heroin. It looks white. It almost the really good stuff almost looks like cocaine. It's almost hard. It's hard to distinguish unless you're like in it, you know, unless you're like dealing with it all the time. But this stuff's a killer. I mean, this stuff hits you like boom. Heroin is a slow-acting drug. When you take it, it takes a minute to hit in. I mean, I never shot up. I never used a needle, thank God. I didn't get there yet. But either way, heroin, when you shoot it, it hits you quickly. But when you smoke it, it's a little quicker. But when you do fentanyl, whether you shoot it or snort it or smoke it, it's fast. It's like you smoke it, wow, you're just like high instantly. And addicts love this because you don't have to wait to get high. It gets you well quickly. You need a little bit of it to get a lot of result. And it kills people because they don't know what they're getting. Heroin addicts we're crazy in that when you hear that somebody dies from a heroin overdose, you want to go find the stuff that killed them. That's what we want. We want the killer. We want the poison, the strongest poison. They would say, man, I will pay extra if you give me stuff without cutting it. Now, no drug dealer in the world does this because A, you risk killing somebody, and B, you don't make as much money. And no drug dealer gives a crap about you. They don't care about the user. They just want the money. They have all these tricks. I'm not going to go into it, but they have all these tricks and schemes to get people hooked on it. You know, they'll sell pills to a kid, right? And the pills are like $40 a piece now, $30, $40 a piece for an oxycodone, 30 milligram tab that doesn't even get you high after a while. And they say, you know what, you should try this. I'm out of pills, man. I got this heroin, and it's cheaper. You know, a little bit will go a long way. And before you know it, people are like living on street corners, living in doorways, living on like just I've seen it kill a lot of people. I've seen it kill. I lose a friend or a friend of a friend at least once a month now in recovery. I know a lot of people dying, and that's why I'm here, because I don't want anybody else to die if I can help it. Now a lot of people are going to die. It's just the way it happens. But you know, hopefully some people won't. Some people find a way. All right, so I'm going to skip to where I hit my bottom and got in recovery, because the rest of the drug use is about the same, just using to live, living to use. I spent all my time finding and using drugs. That's all I did after a while. I lost my company. My dad kicked me out of the house after multiple relapses. I tried to get clean a year ago. Didn't make it. I'm just going to say that. I've been doing this off and on for 34 years. Okay, I started when I was 8, so it's easy to do. You know. So last winter, I was driving with my mom, and the ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, pulled me over for some stuff I had to do with guns. You know, I was not just a drug dealer. I was a gangster. Okay, I mean, this is what gangsters look like sometimes. You know, I wasn't like I never shot anybody, never hurt anybody physically, but I was very scary. I carried 2 guns on me all the time. I had this ridiculous name. They called me Joey Two Guns. And if I showed up at your house and you had money, it was a scary situation. It was scary for me because I would never actually shoot anybody, but I would pretend like I would. And that kind of life is really not fun. It's not fun at all. It's living in fear. It's living in denial, and miserable. And so the ATF stopped me, dragged me out of the car, dragged my poor mother out of the car, threw me down. I had guns on me. Luckily, I didn't have any drugs on me. Well, I'm not lucky. I'm lucky. But these guys saved my life, because they put me in jail for 10 days, or 8 days. And I managed to get clean for the first time in a long time, right? I had a moment of clarity. I said, wow, I'm clean. I want to stay clean. I want God in my life. Because I always believed in God. Even when I was really sick and in addiction, I wanted God, and I just couldn't seem to get it. You know, I couldn't like reach out and ask for help, because I'm addicted. In addiction, it's hard. You're out of control. We're out of control. So I get out of prison, right, and I'm clean. I'm like, yes, this is it. I'm going to stay clean now, just like Pejman said. And the same day, I was high like 3 hours later. I was high, cocaine, oxycodone. I got a script for oxycodone. I had to fill a script for somebody. I got the script, 120 pills of 30 milligram oxycodone, and I did 30 milligram pills in one day. They should have killed me. I should not be here today. And it's by the grace of God I'm here. I fully believe that. After being clean, once you go through withdrawal and you clean up your system, your tolerance goes way down. There's really like, it's a miracle I'm alive. I don't know how I survived it. I don't know. I don't care. I'm here. And when I was doing them, I was in my dad's house, just got out of jail. I'm sitting there doing one of them. I said, God, just go to sleep. Just go to sleep. You don't want to get high anymore. You're not even getting high. You're just killing yourself now. You're killing yourself and you're going to freaking die. Just go to sleep. And I lie down for like 5 minutes. No, just one more. You know? And I was like, I'm insane. I cannot stop. Like, I want to stop and I can't stop. In recovery programs, they call this, you know, the moment we realize we're powerless over our addiction. And this was the moment for me. I was like, I am completely powerless. Like, I thought I was powerless before, but then I go using it. And I'm like, I'm screwed. I'm going to die. I'm going to die right here in my parents' house. There's nothing I can do about it. So my dad wakes up in the morning. It's like 7 a.m. I hadn't slept at all, because I had been smoking crack too, so that kept me awake just enough. That might have saved my life, honestly. But I said, I was like, you should. I mean, I had like wrecked hair. I was a beard, just like a mess. You know, I just was a mess. I said, Pa, I got it. I need help. I need help. He goes, what do you mean you need help? I'm like, I don't know what to do anymore. I can't do it. He goes, I said, I can't stay here. And he's like, well, then leave. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do about it? Just leave. I can't deal with this. You know, my dad is dealing with a prostate issue, right? I'm like, no, you don't understand what I'm saying. If I don't do something now, I'm going to die today. I'm going to die today. And he stopped, and he hugged me, and he goes, let's call Josh. I have a friend, Josh, that's in the program. He's my sponsor now. And this guy came to my house 30 minutes later, and they took me to treatment. And then I got into treatment. Like I said, I'm obsessive about everything. So like, When I'm in treatment, I'm 100%. When I was in addiction, I was like the worst addict you ever met in your life. I was like, Pejman and I could have been brothers back then, killing each other. You know, and I just, since I got out of treatment, you know, I go to a lot of meetings, and I just say this, you know, I conned my parents forever, until I literally almost died in my dad's house. I finally just got honest, you know, because I didn't want to die. I didn't want my daughter to grow up without a dad. And I don't know what any of you are dealing with children or friends or whatever, but there are resources out here. There's way to get help. There's way for people that want to help people get help. And I guess I knew that, but I wasn't ready to accept it. I wasn't ready to ask for help, you know, until I asked. I had to almost die to get out of the rock, to get out of under this ocean of hell that I thought was impossible. I thought I was just going to drown there and die there. I didn't know that there was a way out, but there is. No matter how bad the situation is, no matter how bad you think somebody off is, there is hope. I'm proof of it right here.